So the theme for the weekend, when London Insight were asking what might be a good topic, this was one that came up because it's an area that people frequently misunderstand or they find hard to relate to, because in our daily lives, that the action of doing things and going places and having goals or tasks that we've picked up, there's easily an assumption of stressfulness, that it's a bother or it's a chore or it's something that we're waiting for it to be over. Thank goodness it's the weekend, or I'm looking forward to my holiday, or wouldn't it be nice when this is over? And so we relate to peace as something that's available when there isn't anything happening, or when we've switched off, or when there isn't any kind of engagement or doing. And then also in terms of spiritual teaching, sometimes there are spiritual teachers to talk about the qualities of spiritual practice from a very transcendent point of view. So you have expressions like truth is a pathless land, or journey without a goal, and such like. And I feel that those kind of expressions, they have their place in spiritual understanding, but it's also, in a way, it implies that if you have got a path, if you're traveling along a path, it's therefore a chore, that there's a stressfulness in trying to get somewhere. Or if you've got a goal, that's somehow a burden, or it's a sort of worldly way of thinking and operating. But I feel it's helpful to consider that the Buddha did talk in terms of a path. The Eightfold Path is the fourth of the Four Noble Truths, to wander into technical terminology. So that of these principal teachings that the Buddha laid out, and the framework for his teaching and spiritual guidance for the whole of his teaching career of 45 years, then that languaging of a path and a goal is quite natural and normal, and it's a form that the Buddha used. And within that Eightfold Path, one of those 8 aspects of the path to arrive at that goal of what we call the ending of suffering, or to the experience of complete liberation, the realization of nibbana, that one of those 8 aspects of the path is what we call right effort, samma vayamo. And so there must, to me, that suggests there has to be a way that we make effort, or we have a goal, we set our life in a particular direction that is somehow intrinsically peaceful, that is leading towards peace, and is in tune with nature, with reality, with Dhamma along the way. So that's the area I'd like to explore over this weekend, see how, first of all, how that might work, and what kind of effort, what are the elements that make up that effort when it's samma, or right effort, and what we can do in terms of how we set up our lives, our meditation, and our attitudes, in order to be able to, say, give direction to our life, to the choices that we make, the things that we do, whether it's in the workplace, or whether it's traveling, or whether it's even our meditation, which is directly aimed at peacefulness. How can we, say, give direction, make effort, or work with an attitude that supports peacefulness and supports liberation, and doesn't give rise to unnecessary stressing and tension within our field of experience. So I hope that is all understandable to people. Please do, if there's anything, as I say, that I'm expressing as we go along that doesn't make sense or is unclear, then do make a note of that. And then we've got a couple of questions and answer sessions during the day, so please do feel free to ask about that. So when we use the word right, then again, people can have a certain reactivity towards that. Then it can seem a bit divisive or dualistic, and that there's a right and wrong can seem to be setting up a kind of tension And many of us have got attracted towards Buddhism because of trying to get away from a kind of dualistic approach towards religious goals about this is right, that's wrong, you'll be rewarded for the good and punished for the bad. And so even the words like right can set off alarm bells in people. But I feel it's helpful to understand that the word samma, when you're translating from a scriptural language like Pali or Sanskrit, some words go very easily into English or other European languages, and some are a bit of an awkward fit. So the word samma, S-A-M-M-A, samma, which is translated usually as right, the word samma is related to the Indian musical term for harmony. So when the strings of a veena, of a sitar, as we call it, a kind of instrument, when they are in tune, then they are samma. They are in harmony with each other. So that quality of samma, in a way, it means right as in balance or upright, rather than right versus wrong. So that when something has been righted, it sort of, rather than being on its side, it is set upright. So it's that kind of a right. So it means it has the connotations of being balanced, being attuned, and I feel that's more of a helpful way to understand when we talk about right effort. It's effort that's in tune with reality, effort that is in tune with nature. And in this respect, that attunement is, say, what conduces towards peacefulness. When our life is in tune with nature, with that fundamental reality, then there's a natural peacefulness and ease. There is a way that our life, even where there's a lot of activity or a lot of things going on, we can be in accord with life, with nature. So you can be running, but you can be completely at peace with that act of running. When people say, "Oh, Ajahn Amaro, you're so busy. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to interrupt. You're so busy." And my stock answer is, I try to never be busy, but I'm very often active. It's a bit, being a bit pedantic, I realize. I'm prone to pedantry, but I feel there's a difference between being busy and being active. And it relates to this whole theme, really, for this weekend, of how to work and to do and to give direction, to make choices that is, effective and can help to bring about useful changes in our life and in the world around us, but is not burdensome or stressful or something that is, say, we're looking forward to being over so that then we can experience peace when this particular thing has finished. So then, to talk about that, these qualities of right effort, then the Buddha, in many of his teachings, he laid out different formats or gave different expressions. But one format that I think is useful and will be looking at over this weekend is what he called the four. As people might know, he was very fond of using lists as an easy way to remember things. So one of his lists is called the four great efforts, the four samapadanas, or the four substantial aspects of effort. And so they relate to what is wholesome and what is unwholesome, what is beneficial, what is unbeneficial. So it starts off with the first one in terms of training the mind. This is effort in training the mind, is to restrain the unwholesome from arising, to say, set the intention to not let the mind go in directions of unwholesomeness, towards selfishness or anger, aversion, greediness, and so on and so forth. So restraining the unwholesome is sort of number one. Number two on the list is, if an unwholesome quality has arisen, say there's a feeling of restlessness or anger, aversion, greed, craving, then there's the effort to let go, to relinquish, to release. The third of these right efforts, these great efforts, substantial efforts, is to consciously cultivate the wholesome. So making the effort to focus the attention in the present moment, to concentrate the mind on, say, a wholesome object, like say the feeling of the breath, or the act of walking, or developing the quality of loving kindness. So consciously bringing the wholesome into being. And then the fourth, number 4 on the list, is to maintain in being wholesome qualities that have arisen. So these are if you want the Pali for them, there's samvara is restraining, pahana is to let go, bhavana is to develop or to cultivate, and anurakkhana is to protect or to maintain. Again, you won't be tested on any of this, but just mentioning the Pali for easy reference. So that there's a lot of doing in that. There's a recognition of wholesome and unwholesome, what's beneficial, what's unbeneficial. So I feel that in this respect, it's very useful to not, in a way, to not be afraid of recognizing this is beneficial, this is unbeneficial, this is wholesome, this is unwholesome. That we're not being, say, picky or judgmental or reactive in making those distinctions. It's rather like if you want to cross a road, you stand at the edge of the pavement and you wait until there's a break in the traffic, or you walk to where there's a zebra crossing here in the UK, the black and white crossing. You walk to the edge of that, and then when the traffic has stopped, then you walk across. So we're recognizing that if you just walk straight out into the middle of a busy road, you're liable to get knocked down by a car, or you at least cause alarm and distress in the people who are driving, who have to screech to a halt or to swerve to avoid you, so that we can naturally make decisions and make choices to be still or to move that are not reactive, they're not judgmental, and there's nothing obstructive or stressful or painful involved in those choices that are being made. It's simply working together with the world as we experience it. So in this respect, and in terms of making effort and giving direction in our minds, in our meditation, in our attitudes, I feel it's important not to be, afraid, or not to be sort of feeling that we're somehow diminished, or it's an intrusion upon our spirituality to make judgments about, or to recognize this is wholesome, that's unwholesome, and so on and so forth. But rather, in our ordinary natural process of living, it's like if you want to make a cup of tea, then you put the kettle on. I mean, most kettles, at least in this country, when they're boiling, they'll switch themselves off. But if you've got a kettle that doesn't switch itself off, or you're putting it on the gas, then once the water is boiled, then it's ready to make the tea. You don't have to leave the kettle on the gas for an hour. The water will boil away. If it's an electric kettle without an automatic thing to switch it off, once it's boiled, you switch it off because it's reached the point that you need to make the tea. Anyway, not to labor the point, but we're working with those natural attributes of the material world, the people around us, the boiling point of water, the way traffic works on the street. These are ordinary, natural, everyday processes that we're a part of, that our living system is a part of. And so that when we're training the mind and working with, say, guiding our lives towards a quality of ease and peace and freedom, then I would suggest that it's a skillful use of the ability to make choices, to give direction, and doing that with an attitude that is free of grasping, free of identification, free of attachment. That's the thing to be attentive to. It's not whether we make choices or take a direction or judge something as being wholesome or unwholesome, or beneficial or unbeneficial. We don't need to be say, reticent about following those making those distinctions, but rather it's the way that the mind holds it, the way that that it is picked up. That's what makes the difference. That makes sense to everyone. And in particular, I would suggest it's the what we call the I-making and mind-making habit. It's the sense of I, me, mine that comes into the making of effort, that comes into decision-making. That's the stressor. That's the thing that causes imbalance and difficulty and discord within us and between us and others around us. So again, this is one of the main themes I wanted to explore and to offer up over this weekend, is the difference between making effort based on mindfulness and wisdom, an effort which is attuned to reality, attuned to Dhamma, attuned to nature, and effort which is guided by self-view, the ego-centered and reactive habits that are so strong in most of our lives and so familiar. That sense of, I want to get this. I don't want to be like that. I want to go. I've got to go there. I don't want to deal with this. All those I've got to, I should, I want to. That the I making and mind making that comes into the picture. That's the stressing agent. That's what brings the agitation and the quality of discord. That's what puts the strings out of harmony with each other. I would suggest. So in the Buddha's first teaching, the turning of the wheel, setting in motion of the wheel of Dhamma, the wheel of truth, the very first teaching when he described the Four Noble Truths and the middle way, then when he talked about the Four Noble Truths and what is the cause of trouble, the cause of suffering, that cause of discord, dissonance, discontent, dis-ease within us, he outlined three kinds of craving or attachment to that were the main the root, the source, the origin of that difficulty, that discord, that sense of wrongness we call dukkha in the Pali language. So that the first one is the desire for sense pleasure, kama tanha in Pali. So that the craving for sense pleasure. So when we talk about craving or desiring, often that's what comes to mind. Craving for a particular kind of food that we like, or for a particular, partner, or a place to be, or a particular kind of house, or a sound of a particular kind of music. When we think about craving, attachment to tobacco or alcohol or caffeine or another person, or attachment to things, and that craving for sense pleasure, that's usually what we think of when we use the word craving. But along with that craving for sense pleasure and the mind's sort of addiction to that, then there's two more subtle partners to that the Buddha names in that first teaching. And these are the desire to become and the desire to get rid of. So that these are much more subtle presences, much more subtle kinds of craving, not so easily noticeable, but in terms of meditation and training the mind, they are extremely significant. And so getting a sense of what these are and how they work is kind of essential, I would say, to understanding how effort can be made in a way that is really stress-free and beneficial, and does lead to helpful results in our lives. So the craving to become, bhavatanha in Pali, again dropping in the Pali term for those who are interested. So this is the craving to be. It's like the desire to I want to be peaceful. I want to be happy. I want to be concentrated. I want to develop wisdom. And you think, well, hang on a minute, isn't that Isn't that the kind of thing he's already been talking about? That isn't this what the books tell us are worth having and getting? But it's that element of self, the self-view, the I, me, mine feeling that's sort of come into the picture. Is like, I want to get concentrated. I want to develop insight. I want to be wise. I want to be a better person. I'm not good enough as I am. I need to improve this, and I need to be like that. So in its coarsest aspects, it manifests as sort of ambition. And so that in many ways that it can seem to be quite skillful, trying to do the best that we can with the resources that we have, the kind of character we have, the skills that we have. It's like, well, are we supposed to be passive? Are we supposed to not make any effort at all? It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. But it's where the I, the ego, and the habits of self-view, self-centered thinking come in, and that ego-centered thinking takes over, so that I want to be concentrated. I want to develop insight. I want to be the most impressive meditator. I want to be making the best use of this practice, so that I will really get somewhere. And in one of his teachings, the Buddha points out, he said, even if someone is sitting meditating and their mind is really peaceful, very quiet, very bright, and then the thought comes to mind, I am at peace, I am without clinging, I have realized Nibbana. He said, right there, the way the mind phrases that demonstrates the clinging that is still present. And in the translation of this, Bhikkhu Bodhi, the translator, so puts the I into italic and underlines it. You know, I am at peace, I am without clinging, I have realized Nibbana. And the Buddha says, yeah, right there, it's demonstrating the attitude is still focused around I, me, and mine, and that demonstrates the clinging, the attachment, the grasping that is still there. So that in our meditation, then, is to recognize that I-making and mind-making habit, the way that the ego-centered thinking, self-centered thinking, takes over the effort of meditation. Like, I should sit up straight. I'm getting sleepy. I need to wake up. What will they think of me? I'm really getting somewhere now. Oh yeah, I was really scattered. Now I'm really concentrated. I'm really going places. Yeah, these are not unskillful or unwholesome things, but notice how the mind phrases what's going on. It's in terms of I and me and mine. Then that's with the becoming urge, the craving to become. And then its partner is the craving to get rid of. I've got a lot of confusion. I'm very busy. I've got to get rid of my selfish urges. I'm scattered. I'm all over the place. I need to get concentrated. I have got to get rid of my delusions, my agitations, I've got to get rid of my ambitiousness. This is called the Annihilationist Tendency. So that I want to get rid of my chattering mind. I want to get rid of my thoughts. If only I could stop thinking, then I would be happy. And so that's one aspect of this desire to get rid of. Another is just wanting to switch off and to not feel, to not be. And so if only I could stop thinking, if only I just didn't feel this, if only my emotions weren't so all over the place, if I could just switch this off, that would be great. And so that there's a recognition that, well, that's a nihilistic, annihilationist tendency, thinking that peace comes from being switched off or not feeling or being numb, even though that is understandable, human enough. And I think a lot of the consumption of alcohol and other drugs is about trying to not feel, to not be, to switch off the particularly painful emotional states. So it's familiar enough, it's natural enough, but the peace that comes from going numb or switching off or just annihilating our emotions or our thoughts, that's not a peace of that's liberated. It's a a dull and constricted peace. It's something that is only sustainable for a particular time. Like if you've drunk a lot of alcohol, or you've used drugs that numb the emotions, when you stop taking the drug, when you stop taking the alcohol, then the emotions come back, ever more painful and ever stronger than before. And I can speak from my own experience in that respect. So these two, the desire to become and the desire to get rid of, they're the quieter partners to the craving for sense pleasure, the craving to become something, the defined being, and the craving to not be, to not feel. So in Pali, these are bhavatanha and vibhavatanha. And they are, in many respects, about with the theme of today and this weekend, these are the characters I hope that we can get a sense of how they work, to get to know that, and then also to see that the mind doesn't have to be dominated or guided by those habits of craving and identification, but rather it's possible to establish an attitude that is, say, based on mindfulness and wisdom, that our effort and direction is given to our minds in the work of meditation, free from I've got to get concentrated, I should be sitting up straight, I've got to get rid of these chattering thoughts here, I've got to, I should, I mustn't, but rather noticing those I-making and mind-making habits, getting familiar, recognizing how they work, what they feel like in their presence, getting to know them, and then to train the heart to let go of that, to recognize those habits and to let go of them, to relinquish them, and then instead to establish an attitude based on mindfulness and wisdom. So rather than I've got to get concentrated, I've got to make my chattering thoughts shut up, recognizing that, oh, here is the mind caught up in a lot of busy thinking. If this is followed, it's just going to lead to more agitation. So this is the experience of the chattering mind. So let there be the intention to focus on the breath, say for example, or focus on the posture, or in walking meditation to focus on the footsteps. And so rather than the I should, I must, I've got to being the way that it's phrased, rather, and not just changing the words, but changing the attitude, so that initiative to focus the attention in the present moment, to bring the attention to the breath, that's guided by mindfulness and wisdom, rather than I should, I must, I want to, I've got to. And hopefully the people who are participating today can get a sense of how those are different qualities. And even though it might sound, and I appreciate that English is not the first language of everybody gathered together today, so it might seem, well, it's the same thing. What's the difference? What's the difference? But it's like getting a feeling for a piece of music, or a visual art form, or even with food. There's that sense of, well, that's not quite in tune, or that's not quite symmetrical, or that's not quite the taste is too sharp. It needs something to soften it. So it's that getting to know that quality of a contrast between the mind guided by self-view and those habits of self-centered thinking, and the mind free of that. So that then when you hear a piece of music, that's in tune, or you taste the dish that you're cooking up, that's just right. Or you see a visual form, say, now that's balanced, or that picture is a square on the wall. Right, that's balanced. So it's a way of getting a feeling for that that quality of action being taken based on mindfulness and wisdom. That getting to know that feeling, that quality, as a felt sense, really, not just as an idea or as a word, but to know that balance, that samma quality as a direct experience. And then the more that we get familiar with that, it's like with training the ear to a musical form. Okay, now that's that's on middle C. That's the home note. Things are in tune. That's how the strings need to be harmonious. To get to know that and to trust that, to get familiar with that quality of balance and strengthen that, to give that life, to give that as a quality of a priority, a sense of, yeah, that's how to measure things. And then the more that we discern that quality of balance, get to know that, then when the mind drifts away from that towards the desire to become or the desire to get rid of, then it's much more easy to notice. It's much more discernible, and so it becomes more of a very natural response, moment by moment, to be living and working with that quality of let's say an integrated attention to the present, and feeling and knowing that drift into the desire to become, the desire to get rid of, as and when they arise. But when we have the first period of meditation, then I'll try to introduce these themes. But I feel it's also helpful just to consider how we have signed up for today, or the things that we already assume about the practice, or what is taken as inarguable truths, even before we start to try and meditate. What's here in our attitudes? And many years ago here at Amaravati, when in the late 80s, early 90s, one of the themes that Ajahn Sumedho used to emphasize on this exact area, he'd say, if you have the attitude, I'm an unenlightened person who's got to do something now to become enlightened in the future, right there, you're setting the mind up in a way that's guaranteed to produce suffering. And I remember thinking back then, but isn't that what we're here for? Isn't this why we shaved our heads and put on these robes and we're sitting here listening to you? But and it might sound like a bit too subtle or hard to get a sense for. But what he meant by that is the idea, I am a person who is unenlightened. So right there, you're assuming I am a person as an absolute reality, and I have this quality of being unenlightened, and that if there was a me, a person who is then enlightened in the future, then that would be a good thing. But he would say, look at that as an assumption. Look at that the mind is taking this our name, our body, our personal story as absolute realities. I'm a woman, I'm a man, I'm old, I'm young, I'm British, I'm American, I'm French, I'm German. I'm a Buddhist, I'm not a Buddhist. But all of those I ams we take for granted, to take a step back from that. And he would say, rather than I'm an unenlightened person who's got to do something now in order to be enlightened in the future, instead, be awake now. Here is the awake mind noticing the way things are in this moment. That the person is known by the quality of awareness. The mind that knows is not a person, really, I would say. And we can explore that over this weekend. That which knows the person isn't a person. That quality of awareness, it's not female, it's not male, it's not old, it's not young, it has no name, no identity, no agenda. It's aware, it's awake. The quality of the heart is it knows. The mind, the chitta, the heart is aware, but it's aware of femininity, masculinity arising and passing away, comfort and discomfort arising and passing away, our name, our personal stories, our addresses, and so on and so forth. That the person is known by that quality of awareness. So rather than starting from I am a person who is unenlightened, he would say, be enlightened now, be awake now. So it doesn't mean to say that if there's a moment of clarity, then the suffering has ended forever, wouldn't make that presumption, but rather, in that moment of clarity, here's the awake mind knowing the feeling, like sitting here, looking at my screen with various of you in your little boxes with names in the corner, and I can see my hands in front of my face. So that which knows my hands is not a hand. That which knows the screen is not a screen. That quality of awareness, and it knows the sound of my voice and the meaning of these words, but that which knows words isn't a word. It's that quality of knowing or awareness is freed, is not limited or defined by the objects of awareness. So when we recognize that or give that some attention, to say, yeah, that's my assumption is I signed up for this weekend because I am an unenlightened person. I would like to be enlightened in the future. To recognize that as a half truth or a convenient fiction. Like, yes, we have signed up. Yes, I've agreed to leave this weekend. Yes, here we all are in the little boxes that are names in the corner. But the mind that knows the boxes with the names in the corner, that is not a box. That doesn't have a face. It doesn't have a name, really, I would say, which is a bit mind-blowing in some respects. But it's also, this is where real liberation lies. This is where freedom and that quality of enlightenment lies. It's in that this very awareness, this very element of knowing, that quality of awakened awareness. This is where liberation is possible. So that and again, as Ajahn Sumedho has said a number of times, so there's no such thing as an enlightened person. Rather, the awake mind knows personhood, so arising and passing away. But from the outside, it might say, oh, the Buddha was an enlightened being. So from the outside, but from the inside, the way that the mind is, say, relating to the body and feelings, perceptions, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, that arises and passes away. And when that awareness is very fully clarified and very much in tune with the time, the place, the situation, then what arises from that awareness is appropriate action, skillful and beneficial choices. It acts in ways that are harmless, that are beneficial, that are, say, in tune with the needs of the situation. So that kind of, even though it might sound like it's a bit sort of spacey, or like, oh, if I'm not a person, but I am a woman, I am a man, I do have a nationality, I have a name. Yeah, don't tell me I haven't. It can seem a bit like dissociating or dislocating in its effects, but rather when that quality of awareness is clarified in a well-integrated way, then it actually makes us much more effective as a person, so that we are able to be in tune with the needs of the time, the place, the situation, and the work that we do, the choices that are made are much more in tune with what is going to be beneficial for this being, for other beings around us. And so that I feel it's also helpful to look at those kind of assumptions that we make about being old, being young, being tall, being short, being healthy, being sick, being a woman, being a man, and so on, and to consciously recognize, well, these are convenient fictions. We have names. I've got a variety of names, but so what recognizes? Well, those names, they're just agreements. They're just convenient fictions. That they aren't really more than that. And then holding it in that context, then that begins to give us a feeling, a sense of that intrinsic spaciousness of awareness, and that the stronger that, or the more, say, that quality of awareness is embodied, is actualized, then the effect of that is to help us to be more in tune and to be more grounded, really, in a mysterious way. And that rather than that letting go of those habits of identification, kind of being a person and our name and our story, it's a mysterious way that when the mind lets go of that, then that it functions more freely and more effectively. When we're clinging onto it, I am this person, this is me, this is my story, this is who I am. The more the mind clings to it and identifies with it, then the more we find that things get out of balance and out of harmony.